It really is kind of amazing that in the 7-year, 200 plus episode run of this show, we've never really been able to do a profile on Nick Fury. Yeah, he's popped up from time to time, but not really in a manner that made much of an impact. Then again, what could you expect from a character who was basically created on a dare?
In his autobiography, Stan Lee claimed that he and publisher Martin Goodman made a sporting bet in 1963 that Lee couldn't produce a successful war comic just as the movement opposing the conflict in Vietnam was just beginning to gain in popularity. Lee would also add a further wrinkle into the book by making the entire platoon a multicultural lineup in the wake of the burgeoning civil rights movement that was happening at the time as well. Sergeant Nick Fury's Howling Commandos featured an African-American named Gabe Jones, an Irishman named Timothy Dum Dum Dugan, a Jewish man from Brooklyn named Izzy Cohen, an Italian named Dino Manelli, and Japanese member Jim Morita.
Now, granted, Stan did like to spin a good yarn every once in a while, so there's probably some hyperbole involved in this, but he did effectively win that bet, as Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos would run off and on until 1981. Simultaneous to all of this, Marvel then decided to use Nick Fury as a way to cash in on the pop culture spy boom of the mid-60s.
Though the obvious nod would be to the James Bond franchise, Lee would also take inspiration from the television series The Man from U.N.C.L.E., whose acronym stood for the United Nations Command for Law Enforcement. Thus, Stan Lee would have Nick Fury become a member of S.H.I.E.L.D.
The meaning behind S.H.I.E.L.D.'s acronym has changed quite a lot through the years. When it debuted in the 60s, it originally stood for Supreme Headquarters International Espionage Law Enforcement Development, and then in the 90s it got changed to Strategic Hazard International Espionage Logistics Directorate. Then with the dawn of the MCU it would get changed yet again to Strategic Hazard Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division.
Though obviously taking place after his exploits in World War II, now Colonel Nick Fury hadn't really aged a day, with it being explained that he had been injected with the healing serum shortly after being involved in a landmine explosion. The serum arrested Fury's age, though his left eye would wind up permanently damaged.
Of course, being a government agent with connections to World War II could mean things like, say, the fact that Nick Fury would often interact with someone in a similar situation, namely Wolverine of the X-Men.
Now, the idea of Wolverine having been born in the 1800s wasn't really introduced until much later, but longtime X-Men writer Chris Claremont had long had the idea of Logan being much older than he looked, meaning that Logan could have encountered Fury while they were both representing their respective countries during the war, and then again met up while they were both agents for their representative governments.
This would wind up setting the stage for a trilogy of stories beginning in 1989 that would see Wolverine team up with Nick Fury to take down a ghost from Fury's past. Now, I do have to point out, this is going to deal way more with Nick Fury's background than it is Wolverine's. He's really only given top billing due to his popularity, so we don't really have to set the stage by covering what exactly Logan and the X-Men were doing at this time. Anyway, today we're covering this entire trilogy. This is Wolverine and Nick Fury, the Scorpio Connection.
In Peru, a S.H.I.E.L.D. investigation team led by Agent David Najiwara sets up shop in the ruins of Machu Picchu after hearing reports of terrorist activity in the area. Those reports prove all too true as they are taken down by one powerful blast of sonic energy. Najiwara is killed last with a scorpion badge being placed upon his forehead. Back in New York City, Nick Fury and Dum Dum Dugan finish working out at a local gym. Fury has recently ended his relationship with longtime girlfriend Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, leading to the discussion of both men's age and the fact that they both failed to really propagate the life cycle. Thoughts of family begin echoing through Fury's mind as he heads home and gets a call about the attack in Machu Picchu. A pencil pusher tries to explain the significance of the scorpion, but Fury already knows what it means.
The Marvel Universe is home to a criminal organization called Zodiac, whose members are avatars of the Western Zodiac. The title of Scorpio was once held by Jake Fury, Nick Fury's younger brother, in a matter that we'll get into a little bit later. Just know that in their final encounter, where Jake tried to obtain a weapon called the Zodiac Key, which bestowed various abilities onto whomever wielded it, it appeared that Nick actually killed his brother.
Fury heads down to a bar to drown his sorrows in a fine vintage clinker brick where he's approached by Wolverine. Canadian intelligence had tipped Logan off to the death of Najiwara, who had come to Logan's aid during a mission in Australia, and he wants in on the investigation. Fury agrees to let Logan on board as long as he doesn't kill everyone so they can hopefully flesh out this new Scorpio. Meanwhile, in Greece, a young man named MacLeod is hit on by two college girls, only for the flirtation to suddenly be thwarted when an older woman named Alexis approaches him. He leaves with her, leading the two girls to think that somehow this is a cougar-type situation going on here. In reality, this is Michael's mother, Alexis, and she needs him to get to Rome, where Nick Fury is set to arrive that night. It turns out that MacLeod is in fact this new Scorpio, and now he's getting his chance to finally take down Nick Fury. Back in Peru, Wolverine leads the investigation of the attack, where he's able to use his heightened senses to suss something out. It turns out this new version of the Scorpio key is somewhat computerized and giving off a faint electrical burn. Wolverine is able to track the scent down to a private airstrip where he's able to obtain a file that winds up pointing him to Istanbul, not Constantinople. As this plays out, Fury arrives in Italy to find Scorpio already attacking the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. The two have a quick fight, eventually leading to Fury tackling Scorpio over a bridge, demanding to know one simple thing.
Who does number 2 work for?
Scorpio manages to hitch a ride on a passing gondola, unmasking in the process, revealing that he is in fact MacLeod Fury, Jake Fury's son. Hours later, Wolverine arrives in Istanbul, not Constantinople, and tracks down the location of the man responsible for developing this new microchip. Before Logan can confront the man about the construction of this new Zodiac key, Alexis steps out and has several goons kill the man. Turns out this was supposed to be a trap to catch Nick Fury, but she'll settle for Logan, leading to Scorpio springing out and attacking Wolverine. Wolverine is tough, however, the Zodiac key is more than capable of neutralizing him. The fight, however, gets interrupted by Nick Fury throwing in a flashbang grenade to blind everyone and get Logan to safety. As the two make their way to a local bar for safety, Nick Fury explains everything to Logan.
Amber D'Alexis is a former heiress turned bioweapons trafficker whom Nick Fury was spying on when he suddenly discovered that she was engaged to his brother Jake. Now, Nick tried to basically out Alexis by, arresting her and also sleeping with her, but this didn't work in saving Jake at all, and in fact drove him into the arms of the Zodiac organization.
Fury and Wolverine track down Alexis' base of operations, only to find that she and Jake have fled to attack a S.H.I.E.L.D. facility in Atlanta, Georgia. Also, she set them up the bomb, and manages to take Fury down with some knockout gas. Logan's able to stay conscious long enough to get Fury to safety, and the two head back to Georgia to confront MacLeod. This all culminates in a rooftop confrontation between Wolverine and Scorpio, with Fury trying to talk Logan down. He takes Alexis hostage in order to get Scorpio to turn himself in. It's then that Alexis reveals the truth. She never really cared for MacLeod at all. He was just a pawn to get revenge on Nick Fury by having him be killed by his own son.
Yes, it turns out that MacLeod is not Jake Fury's son, but rather the result of Nick's one-night stand gambit in order to arrest Alexis. Probably should have thought that through a little bit, shouldn't he? Oh, and David Najiwara, Logan's friend from Australia who was killed earlier? He was a double agent working for Zodiac the whole time. Just thought you'd like to know.
Alexis breaks free and grabs the Zodiac key as MacLeod attempts to run away in their small aircraft. Wolverine runs Alexis through with his claws and slices through the plane's wing as it takes off. MacLeod manages to survive the crash so Fury can take him into custody and hopefully deprogram him.
Though the story here states that Wolverine running Alexis through with his claws did not actually kill her, it's later revealed that she did eventually die from this. I just can't tell exactly when. But for now, Scorpio is going to have to take a bit of a back seat as we go to our next part of the story, which sees Wolverine in Hawaii trying to fix something, only for Nick Fury to get in the way. This is Wolverine, Bloody Choices.
In the midst of a parade, Logan spots a kid trying to conceal a gun as he makes his way towards a restaurant. The kid tries to get a shot at a mobster named Bullfinch, but the attempt is thwarted by Shiv, a bodyguard with an oddly familiar-looking hairstyle. Bullfinch ducks out to his limo as Logan pulls the kid to safety. A trip to a nearby hospital reveals the boy's torso is covered with welts and scars, and the kid explains that he and his brother Paolo are playthings for Bullfinch.
I can't believe this is the second story in a row where I've had to deal with serial child assault.
Turns out that Wolverine is actually good friends with the hospital's chief of staff, one Dr. Corbell, and leaves the kid in his care to go get Bullfinch and hopefully rescue Paolo. Along the way, Logan stops back at his hotel where he receives a message containing a very familiar cigar scent warning him to stay out of the situation as best as he can. Paying the message no mind, Wolverine tracks down the location of a ship carrying Bullfinch's supply of cocaine, where it's then that Shiv jumps out and attacks him, claiming that the two share some type of connection. Logan elects to just duck out through the hull of the ship and get to safety. Upon getting to shore, Logan is greeted by none other than Nick Fury, who wants to know what exactly it is the deal with Bullfinch. The mobster is a major target for S.H.I.E.L.D., however, they're hoping that after taking him in, they can get him to sell it as fellow cartel members for the right price. That being said, Logan bringing up Bullfinch's taste in children is enough to get Fury to at least reconsider things and join Logan on a stakeout with the proviso that Wolverine not kill Bullfinch. That all changes when shortly after arriving at Bullfinch's compound, the two spot the kid that Logan rescued earlier being thrown out a window. This proves enough for both men to storm the compound, with Wolverine entering a berserker rage as he tries to stop Bullfinch from getting to an escape chopper. It's then that Shiv attacks once more, popping out a claw from the top of his glove to stab Logan.
Again, this was back when most of Wolverine's past was still pretty nebulous, including his most noteworthy feature, his claws. Originally, the adamantium claws were actually a separate armament attached to a gauntlet on his superhero costume. That would get changed and it became a side effect of the adamantium bonding process to his skeleton. That would get changed again during a storyline called Fatal Attractions, which saw Magneto famously rip the adamantium off of Wolverine's skeleton, and it would eventually be revealed that he had had the claws the whole time, they were just bone. I guess because they just figured out that Wolverine without his claws really doesn't do much. Also, it's heavily implied here that Shiv is related to Wolverine somehow, like being a brother or possible son, but at the end of the story, Wolverine pretty much denies this, and Shiv never appears again, so make of that what you will.
S.H.I.E.L.D. forces capture up to Bullfinch, and he's willing to turn evidence in exchange for full immunity on any previous crimes, which means no justice for the kid. This greatly upsets Logan, but the opportunity is too much for Fury to turn down. So Logan is forced to slump away, vowing vengeance, and to try to track down Pablo while Bullfinch is taken to a safe house. Wolverine goes to confront Dr. Corbell over why he sold the kid out. As it turns out, the kid's corpse was drenched in Corbell's aftershave when Logan found him. Corbell admits that he was always on Bullfinch's payroll and points Logan to where Paolo and several other kids are probably located. Logan manages to find the place only to see Shiv waiting for him, leading to one final confrontation where Shiv admits that Paolo is being dropped off with Bullfinch right before Logan kills him. When Bullfinch's attorney arrives at the safe house carrying Paolo, Fury snaps, but he really can't do much except send most of his men away as there's no sense in spilling innocent blood. Fury then begins recording his interrogation of Bullfinch so he can cough up as much information before Logan can arrive. When that does happen, Fury then makes a half-hearted attempt to stop Logan, at least keep his rage in check long enough to just knock Fury out. Wolverine then goes after Bullfinch's attorney, who was in the process of fleeing his client so he could then take over the crime ring, and then immediately sets about chasing down the portly mafioso into a barbed wire fence. Bullfinch gets tangled up, giving Logan enough pause to reconsider, and then kill him.
In the intervening time, Mikhail Fury has been successfully deprogrammed and is now working with his father to possibly become a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. However, it appears that distress in Mikhail's homeland is beginning to call him back into possibly being Scorpio again. This is the final part of the trilogy, Scorpio Rising.
The former communist territory of Carpathia has overthrown its government and replaced it with a democratically elected collective autonomant. It lasts all of about 24 hours, as soon each of the newly elected officials is killed, immediately plunging the country into a new civil war. The events weigh heavily on Mikhail Fury, whose family lineage traces back to Carpathia, which in turn affects his S.H.I.E.L.D. operative training. He wants to use the Zodiac key in order to restore his country back to the normal it just had the other day.
It turns out this revolution in Carpathia is being backed by longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. foe, the organization Hydra. However, Hydra's plan is basically to put a member of the Carpathian royal family who ruled before the communists took over back on the throne. Or that's what they claim. What they really want is Scorpio, for reasons we'll get into later in the story.
All of this seems to have worked, as late at night, Mikhail dons his Scorpio gear once again and breaks into the facility where the Zodiac key is being held. He tries not to kill any of the guards as he grabs the weapon and runs off, unaware that Nick Fury has placed a GPS tracking unit in it. Turns out that Scorpio's not the only one in Carpathia, though, as Wolverine was apparently passing through the country in between his solo adventures, and winds up joining the anti-Hydra forces along the way. He winds up encountering Nick Fury at a bar, who explains what's gone down with Scorpio, only to be interrupted by Scorpio barging into the place and starting a brawl with Logan. That in turn comes to an end when two buxom gun-wielding Hydra agents barge in and grab Scorpio. Fury doesn't want Michael hurt, so allows him to be taken hostage with no resistance, knowing that they can just track him with the device and the Scorpio key. Mikhail is then taken to a hotel room where his captors prepare to convince him to try to change sides, only for all of this to be interrupted by the sudden appearance of the long-dead Amber Delexis, Scorpio's mother. Alexis explains that Hydra revived her when Fury and Wolverine come crashing in. The sight of his former near sister-in-law causes Fury to freeze in place. But Logan knows the truth and decapitates Alexis, revealing her true nature in the process.
Yes, I believe this is actually our first instance of the LMDs, or Life Model Decoys. The bane of my existence during Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because everyone kept claiming that Patton Oswalt's quadruplet brother characters, the Koenigs, were all LMDs. Which they weren't, they merely just inspired the program. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, basically life model decoys are android duplicates of characters, usually just Nick Fury, who are set out into dangerous situations to make people think that they've killed the individual involved.
It turns out that Hydra wants to use the Zodiac Key to power up their forces, which are made entirely out of life model decoys, and thus turn them into nearly indestructible super soldiers. Scorpio lets slip that he stashed the key away in a bombed-out building, not realizing that he was bugged, and now Hydra is in possession of it. Scorpio and Wolverine work together to get on the Hydra escape chopper to retrieve the key as they barrel towards the manufacturing facility located in an old nuclear power plant. Wolverine takes down the agents as Scorpio takes control of the chopper, and then Logan blows up the plant.
Which means the entire nation of Carpasia just got turned into Chernobyl. Good job?
The royal family is taken into custody to be brought before the Hag, and MacLeod ends up taking over his irradiated homeland, where he promises to bring freedom and stability to his dying populace. Fury admits that he's proud of his son for finding his true calling in life, as he and Logan leave via Megaboss, which is probably going to wind up exploding at some point anyway.
That concludes our look at Wolverine and Nick Fury, the Scorpio connection. How was it? Well, for the most part, I do think these are pretty good little fun adventure spy stories. I mean, they're good, there's good character interaction throughout all of them. I mean, the second one's a little more straight-laced and serious topics, dealing in serious topics, so I can understand that. But again, overall, it's still pretty good. It's still very enjoyable in many aspects. And like I said, there's good character actions throughout all of this. All the motivations make sense. And for the most part, the artwork is pretty decent. I do say for the most part because, unfortunately, Howard Chaykin's artwork in the first story is just not very good. In particular, the women just look off. They all look to be about middle-aged, like they're all in their 50s. Even a character like Rogue, who pops up briefly, who's supposed to be 21 or 22 at this point, looks like she's 48. Likewise, those two college girls who were hitting on MacLeod earlier, they don't look to be that much younger than his mother. Again, it just looks off. It's not very good. And I know Howard Chaykin is capable of much better artwork. So still, that's a real disappointment. Not to mention, Wolverine's appearance in the third story just kind of feels a little forced. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense for him to be in Carpasia at all. I mean, there's this little footnote saying that this is before an adventure in his ongoing series, but other than that, yeah, there's just not really a reason for him to be there. It's like, well, we got to put Wolverine in this because he was in the other one, so there you go. And also, again, blowing up the nuclear power plant. Yeah, that seems like a really sound idea. That doesn't sound stupid at all, does it? Seriously, did no one just think that through at all? I mean, this came out, literally almost half a decade after the Chernobyl disaster. Yeah, and so I guess that kind of sticks in my craw, too. Still, like I said, it's not terrible. It's not horrendously bad or anything. I can't necessarily dissuade anyone from reading this, but I don't think that's an overall hearty recommendation either. I'm going to give Wolverine and Nick Fury, the Scorpio connection, a C. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Hey guys, remember you can help support the channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcat productions. There you can request a tray to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. And as always, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell